Our world is full of secrets. Some are shocking, some are disturbing, but some are so incredible that they sound like fiction. Hey there, welcome to Secrets of the World. Today we will tell you about the secret war that created Wall Street. The year is 1949 and the Cold War has already begun. What role did the newly established CIA play, and how does it relate to the financial district we know today? In 1949, after years of brutal fighting, World War II had finally come to an end. But with the conflict over, another enemy had emerged. So in 1947, President Harry Truman signed the National Security Act, which created a new agency to oversee intelligence gathering around the world. Enter the world of finance. Wall Street, New York's bustling financial district was home to some of the most powerful banks and brokerage firms in the world. The Soviet Union was heavily guarded, and any attempt to enter without proper documentation would likely be detected. They gathered intel on everything from military installations to nuclear research facilities. They had successfully kept secret one of the most important operations of the Cold War. But the story doesn't end there. By using the cover of Wall Street, the agency was able to smuggle spies and equipment into the Soviet Union undetected. Second, it highlights the importance of intelligence gathering in the early days of the Cold War. By gathering intel on Soviet nuclear weapons development, the US was able to stay one step ahead of its rival. Finally, it reminds us that the Cold War was a global conflict that affected every part of the world. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos about the most incredible secrets of our world. Until next time, stay curious. Even if you lived in a country that was not directly involved in the fighting, you were still affected by the tensions and conflicts of the era. The legacy of Project A can still be seen today in the way that Wall Street operates. The CIA's use of Wall Street as a front for espionage operations was a masterstroke of deception that allowed the agency to gather vital intelligence on the Soviet Union. The men and women who put their lives on the line to gather intelligence on the Soviet Union were often working in dangerous and isolated conditions. They risked capture and imprisonment, torture and execution, yet they carried out their missions with courage and determination. The fact that this secret war was kept hidden for so long is a testament to the skill and dedication of the men and women involved. The Soviet Union no longer exists, and the threat of nuclear war has diminished. But the lessons of Project A are still relevant. In an increasingly complex and interconnected world, it is more important than ever for intelligence agencies to be creative and innovative in their approach to gathering information. They must be willing to think outside the box and take risks in order to stay ahead of those who seek to do us harm. But it also raises questions about the role of secrecy in intelligence gathering. Is it always necessary to keep secret the identities of spies and the details of their operations? Or are there times when transparency is more important? The debate is likely to continue for years to come. The financial district remains a hub for international banking and finance, and many of the firms that were involved in Project A are still in business today. Goldman Sachs, for example, continues to play a major role in global markets, but the link to the CIA is no longer so obvious. Over the years, the agency has moved on to other methods of espionage and intelligence gathering, and the bankers of Wall Street have done a good job of keeping their past as spy masters under wraps. The information they collected was then used to develop countermeasures and strategies that helped to prevent the spread of communism. But it wasn't always smooth sailing. There were close calls and betrayals. In 1961, for example, a CIA officer named Francis Gary Powers was shot down while flying a U-2 spy plane over the Soviet Union. He was captured and put on trial as a spy, becoming one of the most famous prisoners of the Cold War. Despite these setbacks, the CIA continued to send operatives into the Soviet Union until the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. So the CIA came up with an ingenious solution: create a fake identity for each operative, complete with a detailed backstory, complete with a fake wife and kids. They were given new social security numbers and birth certificates. They even had to learn the customs and mannerisms of their cover persona. The goal was to make them look as inconspicuous as possible. With their new identities in order, the operatives were ready to head to the Soviet Union. They traveled to major cities like Moscow and Leningrad, posing as businessmen or tourists. Once there, they would meet with local contacts and begin their mission. And it was here where the CIA found the perfect cover for its secret operation. Goldman Sachs, a prestigious investment bank that had been founded in 1869, with a reputation for handling the most sensitive financial transactions. The firm was the perfect front for CIA activities. No one would suspect that behind the scenes, bankers were moonlighting as spies. The CIA began working with several employees, including Max M. Fisher, a senior partner who would become one of the key figures in the plot. They developed a system for smuggling goods into the Soviet Union using a network of warehouses and dummy corporations. Packages containing cameras, radios, and other equipment were labeled with false shipping documents and then transported across the Atlantic. Once inside the Soviet Union, local contacts would meet the shipments and deliver them to waiting operatives. This would become known as the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA. Its main purpose was to collect and analyze information about foreign governments and organizations. But it also had a more sinister function, carrying out covert operations to further American interests abroad. One of the first missions assigned to the CIA was Project A, a top-secret plan to smuggle spies and equipment into the Soviet Union. The stakes were high. If the US could gather intel on Soviet nuclear weapons development, it could potentially end the threat before it even began. But if the Soviets caught wind of the operation, things could get very ugly. This wasn't a nation with whom the US had gone to war, but rather a communist state that was thousands of miles away, the Soviet Union. Since the Russian Revolution of 1917, the country had operated under a totalitarian regime that suppressed individual rights and freedoms. It was ruled by Joseph Stalin, a ruthless leader who was responsible for the deaths of millions of his own citizens. As tensions grew between the two superpowers, it became clear that war was inevitable. It wouldn't be fought on battlefields or in the skies, but rather through espionage, propaganda, and secret missions. The Cold War had begun. Join us as we uncover the secrets of Wall Street and find out what one hidden deal changed the world forever. In the Western world, fear is growing about the rising power of the Soviet Union. Just a year earlier, it had tested the first atomic bomb, and the United States had seen enough of its destructive power in Japan to know this was a weapon unlike any other. Both sides began building up their arsenals and preparing for a nuclear strike, and the Soviets were quick to put their new weapon to use, testing another one just months later in September of 1949. The US had been beaten to the punch, and now it was time to do something about it. In response, the government initiated Project A, a top-secret mission that would be shrouded in mystery for more than 4 decades. Now, what did this project entail? First, let's take a closer look at the situation facing the US. As the threat of communism spread throughout Europe, the US government knew it needed to take action. In order to pull off this dangerous mission, the CIA needed a way to transport operatives and supplies into the heart of enemy territory. But there was still one major obstacle to overcome: getting people into the country. Throughout the Cold War, hundreds of CIA operatives were smuggled into the Soviet Union using this method. All the while, the bankers of Wall Street were continuing their daily routines as if nothing unusual was happening. So what can we learn from this secret war? First, it shows the lengths to which the CIA was willing to go in order to protect American interests. The impact of Project A can still be felt today. As we reflect on the legacy of Project A, we should also remember the human cost of the Cold War. Today, the world is a different place than it was during the Cold War. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed this video and learned something new about the secret war that created Wall Street.